In this video, we follow the extraordinary journey of a family who dared to do what most only dream of, sailing around the world in a 28-foot boat. It's a story of ambition, resilience, and the raw reality of life at sea, where every decision matters and the margin for error is razor thin. What happens when limited space, unpredictable weather, and mechanical failures collide in the middle of the ocean? This family found out the hard way. But this isn't just a tale of hardship. It's about the human spirit, how far it can go when pushed to its limits, and what it truly means to chase freedom across the waves. We'll break down the turning points, the crucial mistakes, and the powerful lessons every sailor and dreamer should hear. So tighten your lines and settle in. This isn't just a sailing story, it's a wake-up call. And by the end, you might be asking yourself, would you take the same risk? The sun dipped low over Miami's Biscayne Bay, painting the water gold as the Johnson family, Mark, Lisa, Emily, and Jack, stood on the dock beside their 28-foot Cape Dory sailboat, Wanderlust. It was June 1st, 2022, and the air hummed with anticipation, laced with a thread of fear. Mark, 42, an engineer with a decade of coastal sailing under his belt, checked the mainsail halyard, his hands steady but his mind racing with the weight of what lay ahead. Lisa, 41, a school teacher with only rudimentary sailing knowledge, reviewed the provisions, her clipboard trembling slightly. Emily, 12, and Jack, 10, buzzed with excitement, oblivious to the trials awaiting them. They were about to set sail to circumnavigate the globe, a dream forged in late-night talks of freedom and the open sea. What unfolded was a saga of ambition, survival, and the unyielding human spirit, a journey where every choice was critical and the margin for error was as thin as a razor's edge. The Wanderlust, a 1980 Cape Dory 28, was a vessel of quiet resilience. Its full keel hull stretched 8.56 meters, 28.1 feet, in length overall, 6.77 meters, 22.21 feet, at the waterline, with a beam of 2.7 meters, 8.87 feet, and a draft of 1.22 meters, 4 feet, weighing 4,082 kilograms, 9,000 pounds, with 1,588 kilograms, 3,500 pounds of lead ballast. It was built for stability in heavy seas. The sloop rig carried 37.53 square meters, 404 square feet of sail area, driven by a Volvo MD-7A 13-horsepower diesel engine with a 49-liter, 13-gallon fuel tank. Freshwater capacity was 227 liters, 60 gallons, a lifeline for long passages. Mark had spent 2 years retrofitting Wanderlust for the journey, adding a 200-watt solar panel array, a 400-watt wind generator, a Spectra Venturi 150 water maker, and a Raymarine Evolution autopilot. Safety gear included an ACR Global Fix V4 EPIRB, a 4-person Viking Rescue life raft, Mustang Survival inflatable PFDs with integrated PLBs, and a Standard Horizon GX2 VHF radio with AIS and DSC. Navigation relied on a Garmin GPS Map 742 Exis chart plotter, a Ritchie compass, and a backup sextant, reflecting Mark's reverence for traditional seamanship. Their route was a carefully plotted 30,000 nautical mile odyssey, starting from Miami, heading southeast through the Caribbean, transiting the Panama Canal, crossing the Pacific to the Marquesas Islands, then onward to New Zealand, across the Indian Ocean to South Africa, around the Cape of Good Hope, and back across the Atlantic to Miami. Key waypoints included the San Blas Islands, Galapagos, Tahiti, Fiji, and Durban. Each leg fraught with challenges: Caribbean squalls, Pacific expanses, Indian Ocean currents, and Atlantic storms. Mark drew inspiration from legendary circumnavigators, studying their logs to anticipate the sea's moods. Yet no plan could fully tame the ocean's unpredictability. The early days were a gentle introduction. From Miami, they sailed 200 nautical miles to Bimini, then island hopped through the Bahamas to the Turks and Caicos, their confidence swelling with each successful anchorage. The Caribbean's turquoise waters and steady trade winds felt like a promise of smooth sailing. In the San Blas Islands, they traded with Kuna fishermen for fresh lobster, and Emily and Jack learned to snorkel among vibrant reefs. But the Panama Canal transit was a reality check. Navigating the Gatun locks demanded precision, and a fuel pump glitch stalled them for 2 days. Mark, elbow deep in the engine compartment, traced the issue to a clogged filter and swapped it with a spare, a stark reminder to carry redundant parts. Entering the Pacific in August 2022, the family confronted the journey's true scale. The 3,800 nautical mile leg to the Galapagos was their first deep-water passage, with no land for weeks. The trade winds pushed Wanderlust at 5 knots under a single-reefed mainsail and a 110% Genoa. Lisa, daunted by the endless horizon, found purpose in homeschooling, teaching the children to plot stars for navigation. Jack, ever the chronicler, logged sightings of dolphins and flying fish in his notebook. But the Pacific's vastness took a toll. Mark and Lisa clashed over watch schedules, and Emily, missing her friends, retreated into novels. The family learned to navigate not just the sea, but their own tensions, finding solace in shared meals and stories under a canopy of stars. The Galapagos, with its stark volcanic landscapes and playful sea lions, offered respite. They restocked provisions and replaced a worn halyard before embarking on the 3,000 nautical mile passage to the Marquesas. It was here, in the heart of the Pacific, that their journey veered into peril. On day 12, at 10 degrees south, 130 degrees west, roughly 1,000 nautical miles from Nukuhiva, Wanderlust struck an unseen object, likely a drifting shipping container, a growing hazard in remote waters. The impact was a muffled thud, followed by a grinding groan from the rudder. Mark dove overboard, his pulse hammering, and confirmed the damage. The rudder post was bent, the blade cracked. For 2 days, they struggled with the emergency tiller, but a squall with 25-knot winds and 3-meter seas tore the weakened rudder free. Wanderlust was adrift, rolling helplessly in the swell. Fear gripped the family. Lisa held the children close, her voice calm but eyes betraying panic. Jack whispered, "Are we going to die?" Mark, swallowing his own dread, rallied them with a forced steadiness. "We're not giving up," he said, recalling tales of sailors who survived rudder failures with ingenuity. The VHF radio, their primary link to the outside world, had a faulty antenna connection, rendering it useless. Activating the EPIRB would summon rescue but end their dream, a choice they weren't ready to make. With no land in sight and help days away, they had to act. Mark and Lisa devised an improvised steering system, drawing on maritime tradition. They gathered 30 meters of 12mm nylon anchor rod, 2 5-meter lengths of chain, a 10-kilogram Danforth anchor, and 4 fenders. In the cockpit, under a starless sky, they built a drogue, attaching the chains and fenders to the rod to create a weighted, buoyant drag device. Streamed astern and secured to the primary winches, the drogue allowed rudimentary steering by adjusting tension on the port and starboard lines. Emily, showing a spark of brilliance, suggested balancing the sails to reduce weather helm, easing the drogue's load. They set a triple-reefed mainsail and a storm jib, coaxing Wanderlust onto a wobbly course at 3 knots. The next 3 days were a grueling test. A low-pressure system brought 30-knot winds and 4-meter seas, pushing the drogue to its limits. The family rotated 2-hour watches, with Mark and Lisa shouldering the night shifts. Sleep was fleeting, the boat's motion leaving them bruised and weary. Jack, trying to lighten the mood, sang sea shanties, his voice a faint beacon in the wind's roar. Lisa, fighting seasickness, prepared canned soup, knowing routine anchored their morale. The psychological strain was crushing. Mark questioned his decision to bring his family into such danger. Lisa grappled with guilt for not insisting on more safety drills. Yet moments of unity shone through. Emily's quiet resolve, Jack's unexpected humor, knitting them tighter. On the 4th day, the seas calmed and Wanderlust held course for Nukuhiva. Mark repaired the VHF by resoldering the antenna connection, restoring contact with the outside world. On October 15, 2022, they anchored in Taiohae Bay, the Marquesas Green Cliffs a site of salvation. A local boatyard crafted a new rudder, and after 2 weeks of repairs, Wanderlust was ready. The crisis, though terrifying, forged a new confidence. Mark later said, "The sea strips you bare, but it gives you back stronger." The journey pressed on with heightened caution. The passage to Tahiti was serene, with gentle trades and bioluminescent wakes that captivated the children. In Fiji, they joined a cruiser rally, swapping stories of their rudder ordeal and learning storm tactics from seasoned sailors. The 4,000 nautical mile leg to New Zealand was a marathon, punctuated by a rogue wave that drenched the cockpit but spared the boat. In Auckland, they overhauled the electrical system after a solar panel short circuit, a lesson in the relentless maintenance demanded by saltwater. The Indian Ocean crossing to Durban, South Africa, was the journey's fiercest challenge. The Agulhas current, racing at 4 knots against prevailing winds, churned steep, breaking waves. Off Madagascar, a 35-knot gale forced them to heave to for 12 hours under a triple-reefed mainsail and storm jib. Their seamanship, sharpened by months at sea, held firm, but the experience underscored the value of weather routing. Mark's satellite phone, equipped with Iridium GO, delivered real-time forecasts, guiding them through the worst. Rounding the Cape of Good Hope in June 2023, they battled 30-knot winds and 5-meter swells, but Wanderlust's full keel and balanced helm shone. The Atlantic crossing to St. Helena and Ascension Island offered steady trades and clear skies, a chance to reflect. The final leg to Miami, via the Caribbean, was bittersweet. The sea had become their home, and land felt foreign. On August 10, 2023, Wanderlust sailed into Biscayne Bay, 14 months after departing. A small crowd cheered, but the true triumph was theirs alone. They had faced the abyss and returned whole. Mistakes were made. Mark regretted not carrying a spare rudder blade, a costly oversight. Lisa wished they'd practiced more emergency drills, especially man-overboard scenarios. But their successes were profound. The Cape Dory 28, often dismissed for ocean passages, proved its worth, its robust design carrying them through storms and calms. Their upgrades, solar, water maker, autopilot, enabled self-reliance, while safety gear like the EPIRB and life raft offered security. The journey taught hard lessons. Rudder failure, though rare, is catastrophic, demanding swift improvisation. The drogue, a technique rooted in seafaring lore, saved them, but its success hinged on precise execution. Electrical systems, vulnerable to corrosion, required constant checks, wiring inspections, battery tests with a multimeter, and spare fuses. Navigation blended modern GPS with celestial backups, vital when electronics faltered. Mark's sextant, once a novelty, proved its worth during a brief GPS glitch. Safety was non-negotiable. The EPIRB, registered with global rescue networks, could summon help in minutes. The life raft, serviced pre-departure, was rigged for rapid deployment. Personal flotation devices, worn in heavy weather, included personal locator beacons for each crew member. Regular drills, flare deployment, manual bilge pumping, built muscle memory for crises. These measures turned panic into action. The journey wove them into the maritime world's fabric. In the Marquesas, Polynesian navigators shared techniques using stars and wave patterns. In South Africa, tales of the Cape storms linked them to centuries of sailors. The cruising community, from Fiji's rallies to Durban's docks, offered wisdom and kinship, embodying the sea's unwritten code of mutual aid. Emotionally, the journey was a forge. The rudder crisis laid bare their fears. Mark's self-doubt, Lisa's dread of failure, the children's need for comfort, but it revealed their strengths. Emily's sail-balancing idea showed a sailor's instinct. Jack's humor held despair at bay. Lisa's steady presence anchored them, while Mark's leadership, though strained, endured. The sea exposed their core, forging a resilience they hadn't known. As Wanderlust docked in Miami, the family stood on deck, weathered and salt-stained, but whole. The journey had tested them, physically, emotionally, financially, but the rewards were boundless. They had seen whales breach in the Pacific, sailed through phosphorescent wakes, and felt the Earth's pulse beneath their keel. They had faced death and chosen life. not by chance, but through grit and ingenuity. The sea had been their crucible, its lessons carved into every callus and memory. For those dreaming of the horizon, the Johnson story is both caution and call. The sea bows to no one, but it honors preparation, adaptation, and perseverance. Would you take the risk? Have you faced a crisis at sea, a broken rudder, a silent radio? How would you prepare? More spares, better drills, a stouter boat? The Johnson's Odyssey beckons you to tighten your lines, chart your course, and sail toward your own adventure, knowing the greatest journeys demand the greatest courage.